The Arizona sun beat down on Route 10 like a hammer on an anvil. Evelyn Hartley stood at her kitchen window watching dust devils dance across the empty lot next door. 83 years old, and the desert still surprised her with its moods. Some days it whispered, today it screamed. Her hands trembled as she folded the letter for the third time that morning. Redwood Financial Group. Final notice. The words blurred together, black ink on white paper, a death sentence written in corporate language. $47,000. She'd borrowed $15,000 2 winters ago when the furnace died. Just $15,000 to keep from freezing. Now the debt had grown, teeth had multiplied like cancer cells spreading through her life with mathematical cruelty. 35% interest compounded monthly. She'd signed the papers without reading them, desperate and alone, trusting that businesses had to follow rules, had to be fair. She'd been wrong. Evelyn set the letter on the counter and picked up the framed photograph beside it. Thomas Hartley smiled back at her, forever young, forever 42. 43 years since the accident at the steel mill. 43 years of sleeping alone, of raising Marcus by herself, of carrying secrets that weighed more than grief. The doorbell rang. Evelyn's heart kicked against her ribs. She knew that sound, now knew what it meant. They'd come twice before. The first time 6 months ago, a man named Dalton had smiled and asked politely about payment arrangements. The second time 3 months back, Dalton hadn't smiled. He'd grabbed her wrist, twisted until something cracked, told her accidents happened to old ladies who didn't pay their debts. She'd told the emergency room doctor she'd fallen. What else could she say? Who would believe that a legitimate business sent men to break the bones of elderly women? The doorbell rang again, longer this time, insistent. Evelyn walked to the door on legs that felt like water. Through the peephole, she saw them. 2 men, Dalton massive and cold-eyed, and another man she didn't recognize. Younger, harder, with the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile years ago. She didn't open the door. Mrs. Hartley. Dalton's voice came through the wood, pleasant and terrible. We need to talk about your payment. Open the door. I don't have any money, Evelyn said. Her voice sounded thin-old. I've been trying to explain that. My Social Security barely covers food and utilities. I can't. You can't or you won't. The second man's voice was flat, emotionless. Because from where we're standing, you live in a nice house. You got a car in the driveway. You got options, Mrs. Hartley. You're just not exploring them. I've tried to pay. Every month I send what I can. What you can isn't enough. Dalton's shadow blocked the peephole. Mr. Kane is losing patience. You understand what that means? Evelyn understood. She'd heard the rumors whispered over coffee at the senior center, shared in hushed tones at church. Dorothy Foster found hanging in her garage. Lawrence Henderson, carbon monoxide poisoning. Margaret Briggs fell down the stairs. All of them owed money to Redwood Financial. All of them died owing. I need more time, Evelyn said. Something slammed against the door. Evelyn jumped back, her heart rabbiting in her chest. You don't got more time, the second man said. You got until Friday. $47,000 or we start taking payment other ways. You understand. Evelyn didn't answer, couldn't answer. Her throat had closed up her lungs, forgetting how to breathe. We know you got a son, Dalton said. Marcus Wright rides with the Hells Angels. Tough guy. Be a shame if something happened to him because his mama couldn't pay her debts. The threat hit Evelyn like a fist. Not her. They could hurt her, break her, kill her. But Marcus. Don't, she whispered. Please, he doesn't know about any of this. He hasn't been home in 8 years. This has nothing to do with him. Then you better figure something out. Dalton's shadow moved away from the door. Friday, Mrs. Hartley. We'll be back. Their footsteps receded. A truck door slammed. An engine roared to life. Evelyn stood frozen in her hallway, listening to them drive away, listening to her own heartbeat thunder in her ears. She made it to the bathroom before she vomited. Afterwards, she sat on the cold tile floor back against the wall and let herself cry. Not for long. She'd learned years ago that tears didn't change anything, didn't fix anything, didn't bring back the dead or pay off the living. But she allowed herself 5 minutes of weakness, 5 minutes of being exactly what those men thought she was, a helpless old woman with no options and no hope. Then she stood up, washed her face, and made a decision. She wasn't helpless. She'd survived Thomas's death, survived raising a son alone through poverty and grief, survived 43 years of unanswered questions and buried rage. She'd survived by being careful, by being quiet, by not making waves. But careful and quiet had brought her here to this moment, to men threatening her son's life over blood money and compound interest. Evelyn walked to her bedroom and pulled a shoebox from the top shelf of her closet. Inside were letters, newspaper clippings, photographs, the secret history of Thomas Hartley's death, the accident that wasn't an accident, the investigation that never happened, the supervisor named Frank Cortez who'd smiled at Thomas's funeral like he'd gotten away with something, because he had. Evelyn had known for 43 years that her husband was murdered. She'd kept silent because Frank Cortez had made it very clear what would happen if she didn't. Your boy's got his whole life ahead of him, Mrs. Hartley. Be ashamed if something happened to him. The same threat recycled across decades, used by different men for different reasons, but always, always effective. She'd protected Marcus by staying quiet. She'd protected Marcus by letting his father's killers walk free. She'd protected Marcus by teaching him to run, to ride away, to find family anywhere but here. Now Cortez was dead, had been for 5 years. But his legacy lived on in men like Dalton, in companies like Redwood Financial, in a system designed to crush people like her and call it business. Evelyn had made one mistake 8 years ago when she drove Marcus away. She'd chosen fear over truth. She'd chosen silence over justice. She'd chosen survival over living. She wouldn't make that mistake again. She pulled out her phone, an old flip model that Marcus had insisted she get, and scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she'd saved but never called. Dorothy Foster. They'd met at church 2 years ago, had become friends over shared coffee and quiet conversations. Dorothy had confided about her own debts to Redwood, about the threats, about the fear that never quite went away. They talked about going to the police together, about finding a lawyer, about doing something. Then Dorothy had died. Suicide, the sheriff said. Case closed. Evelyn hadn't believed it then. She didn't believe it now. She dialed. The number rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Dorothy's voice cheerful and alive, asking callers to leave a message. Evelyn hung up and tried another number. Linda Foster, Dorothy's daughter. Hello. Linda's voice was tired, stretched thin. Linda, it's Evelyn Hartley from church. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something about your mother. Silence. Then what about her? Did she leave any papers? Anything about Redwood Financial? More silence. When Linda spoke again, her voice had changed, gone hard and careful. Why are you asking? Because they came to my house today. Because I owe them money I don't have. Because I don't want to die like Dorothy did. Linda's breath caught. You think they killed her? Don't you? I can't prove it. The sheriff said, the sheriff is wrong, or he's lying. I need to know which one. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Evelyn could hear voices in the background, children playing, life continuing in the wake of death. My mother kept recordings, Linda said finally. Phone calls from Redwood, Dalton McKenzie threatening her. She was scared, Mrs. Hartley. She was terrified. She told me she was going to the police, was going to make them listen. That was a week before she died. Do you still have the recordings? Yes. I need to hear them. Why, what are you going to do that my mother couldn't? Evelyn looked at the shoebox of secrets in her lap, at 43 years of carefully documented evidence that she'd been too afraid to use. I'm going to stop being careful, she said. I'm going to stop being quiet. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. That's what my mother said, and now she's dead. Then help me make sure she didn't die for nothing. They agreed to meet the next morning at Linda's house. Evelyn hung up and sat in the gathering darkness of her bedroom, thinking about Dorothy Foster's courage and her own cowardice, about the price of silence and the cost of truth. Her phone rang. Block number. Evelyn answered. Mrs. Hartley, a woman's voice, professional, careful. This is Deputy Sarah Quinn from the Oak Ridge Sheriff's Department. I apologize for calling so late, but I need to speak with you about an ongoing investigation. Evelyn's first instinct was to hang up. The police hadn't helped Dorothy. The police had ruled her death a suicide and closed the case. The police were either incompetent or complicit. But something in Sarah Quinn's voice made her pause. Something careful and deliberate, like a person choosing words in a room that might be listening. What kind of investigation? Evelyn asked. I'd prefer to discuss it in person. Are you available tomorrow morning? I have plans tomorrow morning. With Linda Foster. Evelyn's blood went cold. How do you know that? Because Linda filed a complaint about her mother's death 6 weeks ago. I've been following up on it. Off the books, on my own time, because I think she's right. I think Dorothy Foster was murdered, and I think you might be next. Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. You're a deputy. Why are you doing this off the books? Because I don't know who I can trust in my own department. Because evidence keeps disappearing. Because witnesses change their stories. Because I think Redwood Financial has friends in very high places. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. But I'm the only person with a badge who's willing to say out loud that something is very wrong in Oak Ridge. So you can keep doing whatever you're planning to do alone, or you can let me help you. Evelyn thought about Marcus, about the threat against his life. She thought about Dorothy, about all the others who died alone fighting battles they couldn't win. I'm meeting Linda at 9 tomorrow morning, Evelyn said. You can come too, but Deputy Quinn, if you're playing me, if you're working for them, I will make sure everyone knows. I don't have much, but I have a voice, and I'm done being quiet. Fair enough, Mrs. Hartley. I'll see you at 9. Evelyn hung up and sat in the darkness, listening to her house settle, listening to the desert wind scratch at her windows. Tomorrow she would start something she couldn't stop. Tomorrow she would step out of the shadows and into the light, consequences be damned. But tonight there was one more thing she had to do. She pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. Marcus, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I need you to know the truth about your father. I need you to know that I've been afraid for 43 years and that fear made me weak. I drove you away because I thought I was protecting you, but I was really protecting myself from having to face what I'd become. Your father didn't die in an accident. He was murdered because he found evidence of criminal activity at the mill and was going to report it. A man named Frank Cortez arranged his death. I have known this since 1981. I said nothing because Cortez threatened to kill you if I did. I've been silent too long. By the time you read this, I won't be silent anymore. Whatever happens, know that I'm finally doing what I should have done decades ago. I'm fighting back. I love you. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. Mom. Evelyn folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and addressed it to Marcus at the last address she had for him somewhere in New Mexico. She'd mail it in the morning before the meeting with Linda and Sarah Quinn before whatever came next. She made herself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, watching the moon rise over the desert. Her hands still trembled, but not from fear anymore, from something else, something that felt like purpose. The night passed slowly. Evelyn didn't sleep. She sat in her kitchen drinking tea, thinking about Thomas, about Marcus, about all the years she'd wasted being afraid. When dawn came, she showered, dressed in her best church clothes, and made breakfast. At 8:30, she walked to the post office and mailed the letter to Marcus. At 9 o'clock, she opened her door to find Linda Foster and Deputy Sarah Quinn standing on her porch. Linda looked older than Evelyn remembered, worn down by grief and anger. Sarah Quinn was in her 40s, fit and sharp-eyed, wearing civilian clothes and an expression that said she expected trouble. "Mrs. Hartley," Sarah said, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "Call me Evelyn, and I'm not agreeing to anything yet. Come in." They sat in Evelyn's living room, Linda clutching a cardboard box like it held everything precious in the world. Maybe it did. "These are my mother's papers," Linda said. "Everything about Redwood. Loan documents, payment records, and the recordings. 3 of them. The last one was made the day before she died." Evelyn took the box and set it on her coffee table. "Before we listen to these, I need to know something, Deputy Quinn. Why are you really here? Why are you willing to risk your career for this?" Sarah met her eyes. "Because Dorothy Foster wasn't the first. In the last 5 years, 8 elderly people in Oak Ridge have died under suspicious circumstances. All of them owed money to Redwood Financial. All of them were ruled accidents or suicides. I started noticing a pattern 2 years ago. Every time I try to investigate, I get shut down. Files disappear. Witnesses refuse to talk. And the sheriff," she hesitated. "The sheriff is protecting them," Evelyn finished. "I can't prove it, but yes, I think so. Roy Brennan has been sheriff for 20 years. He's well respected, well liked, but in the last 4 years, he's made deposits into an offshore account. Large deposits, regular deposits. I've been documenting it, but I can't do anything with that information without proof of where the money's coming from." Evelyn pulled out her own box of papers. "What if I told you Redwood Financial has connections to a murder that happened 43 years ago?" Sarah leaned forward. "I'd ask you to prove it. My husband, Thomas Hartley, died at the steel mill in 1981. It was ruled an accident, but Thomas had discovered safety violations, embezzlement payoffs. He was going to report it to OSHA. The supervisor who arranged his death was named Frank Cortez. Cortez retired in 1995 and became a consultant for Redwood Financial in 2010. Sarah's expression sharpened. "You have proof of this?" "I have Thomas's notes. I have photographs of documents he copied from the mill office. I have a recording he made of Cortez admitting to the safety violations. Thomas was careful. He knew he was in danger. He just didn't know how much danger or how soon it would come." "Why didn't you come forward before?" "Because Cortez threatened my son. Because I was afraid. Because I thought silence would keep Marcus safe. I was wrong about a lot of things." Linda spoke up, her voice quiet. "My mother was afraid too, but she recorded everything. She thought if something happened to her, these recordings would prove it wasn't suicide." Sarah took the box from Linda and pulled out 3 cassette tapes, each labeled in shaky handwriting. Evelyn found her old tape player, the one Thomas had given her in 1979, still working after all these years. Sarah inserted the first tape and pressed play. Dorothy Foster's voice filled the room, elderly, and frightened but determined. This is Dorothy Foster. It's October 3rd, 2023. I'm recording this because I need someone to know what's happening if something happens to me. The men from Redwood Financial came again today. The big one, Dalton McKenzie, and another man I don't know. They said I needed to pay $5,000 by the end of the week, or there would be consequences. I told them I didn't have it. Dalton grabbed my arm, twisted it, said accidents happen to old ladies who don't pay their debts. Said I could fall down the stairs or forget to turn off the gas on my stove. He was threatening me. I don't know what to do. I tried calling the police, but Sheriff Brennan said he couldn't help without proof. What more proof do they need? I'm so scared. The tape ended. Linda was crying silently. Sarah's face had gone hard. The second tape was similar. More threats, more fear. Dorothy's voice growing weaker, more resigned. The third tape was dated January 14th, 2024. Dorothy's voice was different now, hollow. This will be my last recording. They've won. I can't fight anymore. They're going to take my house, everything my husband and I built, everything I was going to leave to Linda and the grandchildren. It's all gone. I won't let them have the satisfaction of watching me lose everything. I won't let them see me humiliated. I'm going to end this on my own terms. But if anyone finds this, know that I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to keep living. The tape ended. The three women sat in silence. Outside, a dog barked. A car drove past. The world continued indifferent to the weight of what they just heard. That's not a suicide note, Evelyn said finally. That's a murder confession. They murdered her spirit first, then her body. I've been saying that for months, Linda said bitterly. No one listens. The sheriff closed the case. The coroner ruled it suicide. My mother's death doesn't matter because she was old and alone and in debt. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, her back to them. When she spoke, her voice was tight with controlled fury. I've been a cop for 18 years. I became a deputy because I wanted to protect people. I wanted to make sure that the vulnerable, the forgotten, the ones no one else was looking out for, I wanted to make sure they mattered. But this job has taught me that sometimes the people we're supposed to protect are the ones who get hurt the most. And sometimes the people we're supposed to serve are the ones doing the hurting. She turned back to face them. I can't do this alone. I can't bring down Redwood Financial and whoever's protecting them without help, without proof, without people willing to go on record, willing to risk everything. Evelyn stood up. At 83, her body was failing, her bones brittle, her strength waning. But something in her core, something forged in grief and tempered by 43 years of buried rage, was strong as steel. Then you have me, Evelyn said. I'll go on record. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes. Mrs. Hartley, Evelyn, they'll come after you. Harder than before. They'll escalate. You could end up like Dorothy. Then I better work fast. Evelyn smiled, and it was not a kind smile. I've been dead for 43 years, Deputy Quinn. I just forgot to lie down. It's time I remembered how to live. Linda stood up too. My mother's recordings aren't enough. They're evidence of harassment, Sarah said. Maybe extortion, but we need more. We need to prove that Redwood Financial is a criminal enterprise. We need financial records showing the predatory loans, the threats, the violence. We need to connect the dots between Redwood, the sheriff, and all the deaths. We need someone on the inside or someone willing to wear a wire. Evelyn looked at the two younger women. I'll do it. Evelyn, you're 83 years old. You can't. I can't. What die? I'm already dying, Deputy. We all are. The question is whether I die quiet or loud, whether I die meaningless or with purpose. I choose purpose. Sarah studied her for a long moment. If you do this, there's no going back. Once you're in, you're committed, and I can't protect you. Not really. If the sheriff is dirty, if Redwood has reach into the department, I can't guarantee your safety. I'm not asking for safety. I'm asking for a chance to fight back. Sarah pulled out her phone and made a call. Judge Brooks, it's Sarah Quinn. I need to meet with you today if possible. It's urgent. A pause. Yes, sir, thank you. She hung up and looked at Evelyn. Judge Harold Brooks retired 2 years ago, but he still has authority in civil matters. His wife Margaret died 18 months ago. She was one of Redwood's victims. The judge has been waiting for someone to give him a reason to go after them. I think we just did. They spent the next hour reviewing documents, making copies, building a timeline. Dorothy Foster's recordings, Evelyn's evidence about Thomas, the list of 8 suspicious deaths in 5 years, Sarah's documentation of Sheriff Brennan's offshore accounts. Patterns emerged, connections solidified. A picture formed of systemic corruption of predatory lending used as a front for extortion and murder of law enforcement looking the other way while elderly citizens died. At noon, they drove to Judge Brooks's house on the outskirts of town. The judge was 78, white-haired and dignified, with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He listened to Dorothy's tapes in silence. He reviewed Evelyn's documents about Thomas without expression. When Sarah finished presenting the evidence, Judge Brooks sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long time. My wife died of a heart attack, he said finally. Stress-induced, the doctor said. She'd been under tremendous pressure. I didn't know why until after she was gone. Didn't know about the debt, about the threats, about the fear she'd been living with for 2 years. She hid it from me because she was ashamed, because she thought it was her fault for borrowing money we didn't have. His voice cracked. $50,000 from a $10,000 loan. She paid them $30,000 over 2 years, and the debt just kept growing. She died believing she'd failed me, believing she'd ruined us. And I couldn't tell her it didn't matter, that I would have paid anything, done anything, if she'd just told me. Evelyn reached across the table and took his hand. 2 old people, 2 widows in different ways, united by loss and rage. Help us, Evelyn said. Help us make sure what happened to Margaret, what happened to Dorothy, what happened to all of us. Help us make sure it stops. Judge Brooks squeezed her hand. Then he stood up and walked to his study. He returned with the legal pad and began writing. I'm issuing a civil investigative demand, he said. It will compel Redwood Financial to produce all business records, client files, and communications for the past 5 years. Deputy Quinn, you'll serve this demand immediately. If Vincent Kane refuses to comply, I'll authorize a search warrant. Vincent Kane, Evelyn's voice went sharp. Who's Vincent Kane? He owns Redwood Financial, Sarah said. Why do you know him? Evelyn's mind was racing. Vincent. In Thomas's recording, Frank Cortez had mentioned someone named Vincent, a younger man, ambitious, willing to do what needed to be done. Could it be the same person? I need to hear Thomas's recording again, Evelyn said. I need to check something. They returned to Evelyn's house. She pulled out the tape Thomas had made in 1981, the one he'd hidden in the garage, the one Evelyn had found after his death and buried like a body. She played it, Frank Cortez's voice arrogant and careless, explaining the embezzlement scheme, the payoffs, the safety violations. And then near the end, Vincent's been handling the mill accounts. Kids got a head for numbers, no conscience. Perfect for this kind of work. Sarah pulled up a photograph on her phone. Is this Vincent Kane? The photo showed a man in his mid-50s, handsome in a cold way, expensive suit, slicked back hair. Evelyn stared at the picture, trying to see past the years, past the money and polish, to the young man Cortez had mentioned. I don't know, she admitted. Thomas died before I ever met anyone named Vincent. But if it's the same person, then we're not just dealing with loan sharks, Sarah finished. We're dealing with someone who's been in the game for over 40 years, someone who learned from Frank Cortez and built an empire on the same principles. Exploit the vulnerable, use fear as currency, make the system work for you instead of against you. Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. This was bigger than she'd thought, deeper, more dangerous. I'm still going to do it, she said. I'm still going to wear a wire, get evidence, whatever you need. Evelyn, no, she cut Sarah off. You don't understand. I've spent 43 years being afraid. 43 years letting men like Cortez and Kane win because I thought staying quiet would keep my son safe. But Marcus isn't safe. Nobody's safe while these people operate. The only way to protect him, to protect anyone, is to take them down. Sarah looked at Linda, then at Judge Brooks, then back at Evelyn. Okay, but we do this carefully. We build an airtight case. We don't give Kane any warning, any chance to destroy evidence or run. How do we start? Tomorrow, Sarah said, you're going to call Redwood Financial. You're going to tell them you want to negotiate a payment plan. You're going to set up a meeting with Vincent Kane, and you're going to wear a wire that records every word he says. And if he threatens me, then we have him on tape, extortion, intimidation, assault, whatever he does, we'll have proof. Evelyn nodded. When do I make the call? First thing tomorrow morning. I'll get the wire set up tonight, test it, make sure it's working perfectly. In the meantime, you need to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't answer the door unless you know who it is. Dalton McKenzie and his friends can't know we're onto them. They made plans, discussed contingencies, prepared for everything they could imagine. When Sarah and Linda finally left, the sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Evelyn stood on her porch, watching the light fade, thinking about what she'd set in motion. Tomorrow she would walk into Vincent Kane's office wearing a wire. Tomorrow she would look into the eyes of a man who'd built a fortune on suffering and pretend to beg for mercy. Tomorrow she would be afraid, but she would do it anyway. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, then saw the area code, New Mexico. Hello, Mom, Marcus's voice rough and uncertain, like he couldn't believe he was calling. Mom, I got your letter. I'm coming home. Evelyn's knees went weak. She sat down hard on the porch steps. Marcus, no, you can't. It's not safe. I'm already on my bike. I'll be there by tomorrow night. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning, I'm going to help you. I don't need help. I need you to stay away. These people, they threatened to hurt you if I didn't pay. If you come here, then we'll deal with it together. Like we should have done 8 years ago. Like I should have done instead of riding away. Marcus, I'm not asking permission, Mom. I'm telling you I'm coming home. We'll fight this together or we won't fight it at all. Your choice. Evelyn closed her eyes. She'd spent 8 years pushing Marcus away, convincing herself it was for his own good. Now he was riding back into danger because of a letter she'd written in a moment of weakness. But maybe weakness was what she needed. Maybe trying to be strong alone was what had failed her all these years. Okay, she said quietly. Come home, but Marcus, when you get here, we do this my way. No violence, no Hell's Angels justice. We do this legally, carefully, the right way. I'll try, Mom, that's all I can promise. Then I guess that'll have to be enough. They talked for a few more minutes, but there wasn't much to say. 8 years of distance couldn't be bridged in a phone call. When they hung up, Evelyn sat on her porch in the gathering dark, thinking about her son, riding through the night to save her, not knowing she'd already decided to save herself. Tomorrow would bring Vincent Kane and a wire and the first real step toward justice. Tomorrow Marcus would arrive and they'd have to find a way to work together after so many years apart. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight Evelyn allowed herself one moment of something she hadn't felt in 43 years. Hope. Marcus Hartley rolled into Oak Ridge at dusk, his Harley's engine growling like distant thunder. The town looked smaller than he remembered, older, like it had aged in dog years while he'd been away. Main Street was half empty, storefronts dark, the movie theater converted to something else. He found his mother's house by muscle memory, navigating streets he'd known since childhood. When he pulled into the driveway, Evelyn was waiting on the porch, 83 years old and somehow smaller than he remembered, but the steel in her spine was still there, visible in the way she stood, the way she looked at him without flinching. Marcus killed the engine and sat on his bike for a moment, not sure how to bridge 8 years with a greeting. Evelyn solved the problem by walking down the steps and pulling him into a hug. "You came," she said against his shoulder. "You asked." They separated and Marcus got his first good look at her in years. She'd aged, yes, but there was something else. Something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Determination, purpose, maybe even anger. "You look different," he said. "I am different." She led him inside. "I stopped being afraid." Over coffee at the kitchen table, Evelyn told him everything. The loan, the threats, Dorothy Foster's death, the recordings, the evidence about Thomas. She told him about Sarah Quinn and Judge Brooks. She told him about the plan to wire her up and meet with Vincent Kane. Marcus listened without interrupting, his coffee going cold in his hands. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You can't do this," he said finally. "I'm doing it tomorrow morning." "Mom, these people kill. You said it yourself. 8 people dead in 5 years. You think they won't kill you too?" "I think they'll try. That's why I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll let the law handle this. Promise me you won't go after them yourself." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where he'd learned to ride a bike, where his father had taught him to change oil, where his childhood had ended the day they told him Thomas was dead. "I can't promise that." "Then you need to leave, because I'm doing this with or without you, and I can't have you making it worse by going after Kane with fists and fury. That's not who I need right now." Marcus turned to look at her. "Then who do you need?" "I need my son, not the Hell's Angel, not the fighter, just Marcus Hartley, who used to sit at this table and do his homework and dream about being someone who mattered. I need him to believe that his mother can do something brave without him having to save her." The words hit harder than any punch Marcus had ever taken. "I don't know how to be that person anymore," he admitted. "Then learn, starting now." They sat in silence for a while. Then Marcus asked the question that had been burning in his mind since he read her letter. "You really think this Kane is the same Vincent from Dad's recording?" "I don't know, but the timeline fits. Dad died in 1981. Kane would have been in his 20s then, old enough to be working with Cortez, young enough to learn from him, to build on what Cortez started. And when Cortez retired from the mill, Kane gave him a job at Redwood. Payback or insurance. Keep your old partner close, keep him quiet." Evelyn pulled out a folder. "I've been doing research. Vincent Kane opened Redwood Financial 5 years ago, but before that he had a dozen other businesses. Payday loans, cashing bail bonds, all of them targeting poor people, elderly people, desperate people. He's been perfecting this game for decades." Marcus studied the documents. Newspaper articles, business filings, complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau. A pattern emerged. Kane would open a business, extract maximum profit through barely legal means, then shut down before regulators could act. Rinse and repeat. A shark in motion, always moving, always feeding. He's good, Marcus said grudgingly. He's evil, Evelyn corrected. There's a difference. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Marcus's hand went to his belt, to the knife he'd carried for 40 years. Evelyn put a hand on his arm. It's probably Sarah Quinn. She said she'd come by tonight to set up the wire. It was. Sarah stood on the porch in civilian clothes, carrying a bag that looked like it held gym equipment. With her was another woman, older, harder-edged. Evelyn Marcus, Sarah said. This is Detective Rita Vance from the state police. She's going to help us with the technical side of things. They went inside. Rita Vance had the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile, but her eyes were sharp and assessing. She looked at Marcus's vest at the Hells Angels patches, and something in her expression tightened. You're the son, she said. It wasn't a question. I'm the son. Sarah tells me you ride with the Angels. That going to be a problem. Only if you make it one. Rita smiled, and it wasn't friendly. I've been working organized crime for 20 years. I've put more bikers in prison than you've probably met. So let's be clear about something. I don't care who you ride with. I don't care about your history. All I care about is whether you're going to blow this investigation by doing something stupid. I'm not here to cause problems. Good. Then stay out of the way and let us do our jobs. Evelyn stepped between them. That's enough. Rita Marcus is here to support me, not to interfere. Marcus Detective Vance is risking her career to help us. We all want the same thing. Can we agree on that and move forward? The tension held for another moment, then broke. Rita nodded. Marcus did the same. They spent the next hour going over the plan. Rita pulled out the wire, a tiny microphone and transmitter that would be taped to Evelyn's chest, hidden under her clothes. She explained how it worked, how sensitive it was, how far the signal would reach. We'll be in a van parked 2 blocks away, Rita said. We'll hear everything Kane says. If things go south, if he threatens you, if you feel unsafe in any way, you use the safe word. We'll be inside in 30 seconds. What's the safe word? Evelyn asked. Thomas. Evelyn's breath caught. Sarah had chosen well, a word that would sound natural in conversation about the past, but one that carried weight, that meant something. They practiced. Evelyn wore the wire spoke, normally walked around her house while Rita listened in the van outside. The equipment worked perfectly. Too perfectly. Evelyn could hear Rita's voice in her head, counting down testing range. When they were satisfied, Rita removed the wire and packed it away. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I'll be here to wire you up. You'll call Redwood at 9:30 and set up a meeting for 10. That gives us 30 minutes to get into position to make sure everything's working. You understand, though? Evelyn nodded. And Mrs. Hartley, Vincent Kane is dangerous. He's smart, he's careful, and he's been doing this long enough to spot trouble. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to get him to confess to murder. Just get him to threaten you, to demand payment, to say something incriminating about the loan terms. That's enough. What if he doesn't say anything useful? Then we try again. But my experience with men like Kane, they can't help themselves. Give them power over someone and they'll use it. They'll enjoy it. And when they do, we'll have them on tape. After Rita and Sarah left, Marcus and Evelyn sat up late, talking about things they'd avoided for 8 years. Thomas's death, the argument that drove Marcus away, the silence that followed. I shouldn't have said those things, Evelyn said. About the club not being family, I was wrong. You were right. The club was me running away from dealing with Dad's death. I just didn't want to admit it. And I was running away too, from the truth about what happened to him. We both ran. We just ran in different directions. Marcus reached across the table and took his mother's hand. I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I stayed away. I'm sorry I drove you away. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. You're brave now. Now I'm desperate. There's a difference. I don't think so. They sat holding hands across the kitchen table, two people who'd lost too much and stayed silent too long, finally finding words. The next morning came too fast. Marcus woke on the couch to find his mother already up dressed, making breakfast like nothing unusual was about to happen. Rita arrived at 9 sharp. She wired Evelyn up efficiently, professionally, checking and rechecking the equipment. Sarah showed up 10 minutes later with Judge Brooks. I wanted to be here, the judge said, to see this through. At 9:30, Evelyn picked up the phone with hands that only trembled slightly. She dialed Redwood Financial. Redwood Financial, how may I help you? This is Evelyn Hartley. I need to speak with Mr. Kane about my account. One moment, please. The whole music was something classical, Mozart or Bach, pleasant and civilized. The cognitive dissonance was jarring, violence wrapped in elegance. Mrs. Hartley, Vincent Kane's voice was smooth, educated, empty of anything resembling warmth. How unexpected. I was under the impression you had nothing to say to us. I've been thinking about our situation. I'd like to discuss payment arrangements. I'm listening. I prefer to do this in person, at your office, this morning if possible. A pause. Kane was thinking, calculating. That can be arranged, 10 o'clock, and I'll be there. Evelyn hung up. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline and fear mixing in her bloodstream. You don't have to do this, Marcus said for the 10th time. Yes, I do. Rita did a final check of the wire. Everything was working. Sarah and Rita would be in the van listening and recording. Marcus and Judge Brooks would wait at the house. If anything went wrong, if the safe word was spoken, Marcus was to call 911 and then stay put. No heroics. He'd agreed he was lying. Evelyn drove herself to Redwood Financial in her old sedan. Marcus waited exactly 30 seconds after she left, then climbed on his Harley and followed at a distance. He parked 2 blocks away where he could see the building's entrance. Sarah's voice came through the earpiece she'd given him, small and tinny. Marcus, what are you doing? You're supposed to be at the house. I'm back up. If something happens, I'm close. If you interfere, I won't. But I'm not sitting home while my mother walks into a building full of people who've killed 8 times and gotten away with it. Sarah swore but didn't argue further. Through the earpiece, Marcus heard his mother enter Redwood Financial, heard the receptionist greet her, heard footsteps on stairs, then Vincent Kane's voice. Mrs. Hartley, please come up to my office. Marcus sat on his bike listening to his mother climb stairs, walk down a hallway, enter her room. Every sound was clear, immediate. He could hear her breathing, slightly elevated. Could hear Kane's pleasant, professional tone. Please sit. Can I offer you water, coffee? No, thank you. Well then, you mentioned payment arrangements. Yes, I want to settle my debt, but I don't have $47,000. I was hoping we could negotiate something more manageable. Mrs. Hartley, I appreciate your honesty. Unfortunately, the debt is what it is. $47,000 with interest accruing daily. If you can't pay the full amount, I'm not sure what there is to negotiate. I could pay $500 a month, maybe more if I... $500 a month, Kane laughed, not unkindly. At that rate, you'd be paying for the rest of your life and still owe more than you started with. The math simply doesn't work. Then what do you suggest? I suggest you explore other options. You have a house. It's worth what, $200,000, sell it. Pay me what you owe. Live somewhere less expensive. This is my home. My husband and I bought it 43 years ago. I raised my son here. I'm not selling. Then I'm afraid we have a problem. Kane's voice had changed, gone cooler. You understand that Redwood Financial is a business, not a charity. We have obligations. When people don't pay, there are consequences. What kind of consequences? The legal kind primarily. Lawsuits liens wage garnishment. Though at your age with only Social Security, wage garnishment isn't really applicable, is it? Your men came to my house. They threatened me. One of them broke my wrist. I don't know what you're talking about. Kane's voice was flat, careful. Redwood Financial employs collection agents who sometimes visit clients to discuss payment options. If one of them behaved inappropriately, I certainly want to know about it. Did you file a police report? You know I didn't. Then I'm afraid it's your word against theirs. And Mrs. Hartley, I have to be honest. You're an elderly woman with a history of falling. The hospital has records of multiple visits. If you're claiming assault, well, that's a serious accusation, one that would require proof. Marcus's hands tightened on the handlebars. Kane was good, turning her own injuries against her, laying groundwork for deniability. I know about Dorothy Foster, Evelyn said. Silence, long enough that Marcus thought the wire had failed. Then Kane spoke and his voice had changed again. Gone cold. Who? Dorothy Foster. She owed you money. She died 4 months ago, ruled a suicide. I knew Dorothy. Lovely woman. Tragic what happened. But I don't see what that has to do with your situation. She was murdered, and you know it. Mrs. Hartley, I'm going to stop you right there. You're making very serious accusations. Accusations that sound a lot like defamation. I would strongly suggest you be very careful about what you say next. I have recordings. Dorothy made tapes of your men threatening her. Dalton McKenzie telling her accidents happen to old ladies who don't pay. Another silence. When Kane spoke again, his voice was ice. You're wearing a wire. Marcus was off his bike and running before he consciously decided to move. Marcus, no, Sarah's voice in his ear. Stand down, we're moving in. But Marcus was already at the building entrance, was pushing through the door, was taking stairs 2 at a time. Behind him, he could hear sirens, could hear Sarah and Rita shouting commands into radios, but all he cared about was reaching his mother before Kane did something permanent. He hit the 2nd floor and saw a man Dalton McKenzie had to be 6'5" and built like he ate smaller men for breakfast, standing outside an office door. Dalton saw Marcus and moved to intercept. They collided like freight trains. Marcus was 63, but he'd been fighting since he was 15. He knew how to use momentum, knew where to strike, knew that big men had big blind spots. He drove his knee into Dalton's solar plexus, followed with an elbow to the jaw, and when Dalton staggered back, Marcus shouldered past him and through the office door. Vincent Kane stood behind his desk, perfectly calm, perfectly composed. Evelyn sat in a chair in front of him, wire visible now, ripped from her chest. Blood on her blouse where the tape had torn skin. Marcus Hartley, I presume, Kane said. Your timing is impeccable. Step away from her, or what you'll assault me in my own office in front of witnesses. Kane gestured to a camera in the corner. Everything's being recorded, Mr. Hartley. Your breaking and entering. Your assault on my employee, whatever happens next. Good. Then it'll record me beating you to death if you don't step away from my mother? Kane smiled. Such passion, such misplaced loyalty. Your mother came here wearing a wire trying to entrap me, and you think I'm the criminals. Police flooded into the room. Sarah, first weapon drawn, Rita right behind her, other deputies Marcus didn't know. Vincent Kane, you're under arrest. Sarah's voice was hard, official. Hands where I can see them. Kane raised his hands slowly, still smiling. On what charge? Extortion, assault, conspiracy to commit murder. We've got everything on tape, your own words. Do you? Yeah, because from where I'm standing, the only crime committed here is Mrs. Hartley's attempted wire fraud and her son's assault on my security personnel. I have video evidence of both. What do you have a recording of a business meeting that was illegally obtained? Rita stepped forward. We have a civil investigative demand from Judge Brooks. We have legal authority to be here. The demand was for financial records, not for my client meetings, and certainly not for unauthorized recording of private conversations. They'd underestimated him. Kane had been ready, had known or suspected, had turned the trap around on them. But then Evelyn spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. Thomas, the safe word, but not for them, for someone else. A man stepped out of Kane's private bathroom, older, late 70s, wearing an expensive suit. He looked at Kane with something like disappointment. That's enough, Vincent. Kane's smile faltered. Mr. Castellano, I didn't realize you were here. Obviously, the old man's voice carried weight authority. I came to see what kind of operation you're running, whether the complaints I've been hearing have any merit. Sir, these people are trying to... I heard what they're trying to do, and I heard what you said about Dorothy Foster, about evidence, about threats. Castellano walked to the desk and picked up a folder. I also took the liberty of reviewing your files while I waited. Interesting reading. 23 active cases, all targeting elderly clients. Average loan amount 12,000. Average debt owed 46,000. Average time to default 18 months. Kane's face had gone white. It's a system, Castellano continued. A very efficient system. Lend to people who can't pay. Use terms that guarantee failure. Then collect through intimidation and violence. And when intimidation fails, accidents happen. Mr. Castellano, I can explain. No, you can't. The old man's voice went cold. I warned you when I invested in Redwood. I said keep it legal. Keep it clean. Make money, but don't make bodies. You agreed. You shook my hand and looked me in the eye and promised me you'd run this business properly. I have everything I've done is within the law. Dorothy Foster is dead. Lawrence Henderson is dead. Margaret Brooks is dead. 8 people in 5 years, Vincent. 8 people who all owed you money, who all died under suspicious circumstances. You think I'm stupid. You think I didn't do my homework before coming here. Castellano turned to Sarah. Detective Quinn, take him. Take all of it. The files, the computers, everything. My lawyers will cooperate fully with your investigations. Kane lunged for his desk, probably going for a gun or a panic button. Marcus was closer. He caught Kane's wrist, twisted, heard something crack. Kane went down with a scream. Rita was on him in seconds, cuffing him, reading him his rights. Dalton tried to run, but got tackled by 3 deputies in the hallway. In the chaos, Marcus went to his mother. Evelyn was pale, shaking blood on her blouse and fire in her eyes. Are you okay? Marcus asked. I got him. Did you hear he admitted knowing about Dorothy, about the system? We got him. Yeah, Mom, we got him. Sarah approached, holstering her weapon. Mrs. Hartley, we need to get you to a hospital. Get you checked out. I'm fine. You're bleeding. It's a scratch. I want to see them arrested. I want to watch them take Vincent Kane out of here in handcuffs. And she did. They all did. Kane, Dalton, 3 other Redwood employees who'd been in the building. All arrested, all read their rights, all led away, while evidence boxes were loaded into vans. Castellano approached Evelyn. Mrs. Hartley, I want you to know that I had no knowledge of Vincent's methods. If I had known, you would have what stopped him or just been more careful about covering your tracks. The old man's expression didn't change. I would have ended our business relationship immediately. I have many investments, many interests. I can't monitor them all personally. That's why I hire people like Vincent, people I'm supposed to be able to trust. And now Redwood Financial will be shut down, all debts forgiven, all clients contacted and informed they owe nothing. I'll take the financial loss as payment for my poor judgment in partners. That's not enough. No, it's not. Which is why I'm also setting up a victims fund. Everyone who was harmed by Redwood will receive compensation. It won't bring back the dead, but it might help the living. Evelyn studied him. Why are you doing this? Because I'm old Mrs. Hartley. Old enough to know that money means nothing if you can't sleep at night. And because my granddaughter is about your age, if someone did to her what Vincent did to you, I'd want someone to make it right. He handed her a business card. My lawyers will contact you. If there's anything you need, anything at all, you call that number. Then he walked away, an old man carrying the weight of other people's sins. Sarah came over with a blanket. Evelyn, please, let us take you to the hospital. I will. But first I need to know about Sheriff Brennan. Is he being arrested too? Sarah's expression hardened. State police picked him up an hour ago. He was trying to flee. Had a bag packed cash and fake ID. We got him. Good. Evelyn swayed slightly. Marcus caught her. Okay, she said. Now I'll go to the hospital. They took her in an ambulance. Marcus followed on his bike, Sarah and Rita behind him in the van. The whole convoy rolling through Oak Ridge like a parade of justice. At the hospital, doctors cleaned Evelyn's wounds minor, just as she had said, and wanted to keep her overnight for observation. She refused. They compromised on a few hours in the ER while they ran tests. Marcus sat with her while machines beeped and nurses came and went. You broke your promise, Evelyn said. You got hurt. I'm fine, and you still broke your promise. You were supposed to let the law handle it. I did. I just helped a little. Evelyn smiled despite herself. You're impossible. I learned from the best. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Evelyn spoke again. Your father would be proud of you, of both of us. I think he'd be proud of you. I just followed your lead. We make a good team. Yeah, we do. Dr. Catherine Hayes came in with test results. Everything looked good. Evelyn was being released with instructions to rest, to follow up in a week, to not investigate any more criminal enterprises for at least a month. Sarah picked them up and drove them home. The sun was setting as they pulled into the driveway, painting the desert in shades of gold and purple. Inside, Judge Brooks was waiting with Sterling, Marcus's old friend, who'd driven down when he heard what was happening. Evelyn, the judge said, standing when she entered. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, Evelyn corrected. All of us. They sat around the kitchen table drinking coffee, talking about what happened, what would happen next. Kane would be charged with multiple counts of extortion, assault, conspiracy to commit murder. Dalton was already cooperating, turning state's evidence. Sheriff Brennan was looking at 15 years minimum. Rita Vance called with updates. The FBI was taking over the investigation, was looking into Kane's connections, his other businesses, his associates. It was bigger than Oak Ridge, bigger than Arizona. They'd found evidence of operations in 4 states, hundreds of victims, millions in illegal profits. You started something, Mrs. Hartley, Rita said. Something important. When she hung up, Evelyn felt it. The weight lifting. 43 years of carrying Thomas's death, 8 years of carrying Marcus's absence, 2 years of carrying debt and fear and shame. All of it lifting, dissipating, leaving her lighter than she'd felt since 1981. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now, Evelyn smiled. Now we figure out how to be a family again. I'd like that. Me too. Judge Brooks raised his coffee cup. To justice, late but not denied. They drank to that, to justice, to family, to second chances and late-blooming courage. Outside, the desert night settled in cool and clear and full of stars. The trial of Vincent Kane began on a Tuesday in October, 4 months after his arrest. The federal courthouse in Phoenix was packed with reporters, victims' families, and curiosity seekers. Evelyn Hartley sat in the front row, Marcus on one side, Judge Brooks on the other. Kane wore an expensive suit and an expression of wounded innocence. His lawyers, three of them all from prestigious firms, had spent months trying to get the case dismissed, trying to suppress evidence, trying to delay. They'd failed at all of it. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Financial records showing the predatory loans, recordings of threats, testimony from Dalton McKenzie, who'd turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. And most damning of all, the recording from Evelyn's wire where Kane had all but admitted knowing about Dorothy Foster's death. But there was more. After Kane's arrest, other victims had come forward. 23 in Oak Ridge became 40 across Arizona. 40 became 90 across 4 states, each with the same story: desperate circumstances, predatory loans, threats, violence, fear. 3 more deaths had been linked to Redwood Financial: Lawrence Henderson's carbon monoxide poisoning, Margaret Brooks's fatal fall, and one Evelyn hadn't known about, James Sullivan, 79, who died of a heart attack 2 weeks after Dalton McKenzie broke his arm. The prosecution called its first witness. Sarah Quinn took the stand and laid out the investigation, the evidence, the pattern of criminal behavior. She was professional, thorough, devastating. Defense attorneys tried to shake her, tried to suggest bias, suggested incompetence. Sarah didn't budge. She'd done her homework. She had facts, dates, documentation. She was unbreakable. The second witness was Dalton McKenzie. Dalton was a broken man. Prison hadn't been kind to him. He'd lost weight, lost his swagger, lost whatever had made him believe he was untouchable. He testified about the collections, the threats, the violence. He named names, provided details, implicated not just Kane, but a network of enforcers and corrupt officials. When asked about Dorothy Foster, Dalton's voice cracked. Mr. Kane told me to make it look like suicide, said Dorothy was going to the police, was going to cause problems, said it needed to be handled. So He couldn't continue. You killed her, the prosecutor prompted gently. I made it look like she hanged herself, but yeah, I killed her. The courtroom was silent except for Linda Foster's quiet sobbing. The defense tried to suggest Dalton was lying to reduce his own sentence, but the evidence backed him up. Fibers from Dorothy's garage matched Dalton's gloves. His phone records put him at her house the night she died. He'd searched how to stage a suicide on his computer 2 days before. The third day of trial, they called Evelyn. Marcus had wanted to prepare her, had wanted to practice testimony, but Evelyn refused. I've been preparing for this for 43 years, she'd said. I know what to say. She walked to the witness stand with her head high, took the oath with a steady voice, sat and looked directly at Vincent Kane. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, approached with a gentle smile. Mrs. Hartley, can you tell the court about your relationship with Redwood Financial? I borrowed $15,000 to fix my furnace 2 winters ago. The interest rate was 35%. Within a year, I owed $47,000. When I couldn't pay, they sent men to threaten me, to hurt me, to break my bones and tell me accidents happen to old ladies. And did you report these threats to the police? I tried. Sheriff Brennan told me I needed proof, that my word wasn't enough, so I started gathering proof. What kind of proof? I talked to other victims. I collected their stories, their documents, their recordings. I learned that I wasn't alone, that Redwood Financial had been destroying lives for years, and that nobody was stopping them because nobody cared about old people in debt. Mrs. Hartley, why did you agree to wear a wire and meet with Mr. Kane? Evelyn looked at Kane again. He met her eyes without flinching. Because I was tired of being afraid. Because my husband was murdered 43 years ago by men who thought they could get away with it because I was too scared to fight back. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. The prosecutor paused. You mentioned your husband's murder. Can you elaborate? The defense attorneys objected. Relevance, prejudicial. The judge overruled. I'll allow it. Go ahead, Mrs. Hartley. Evelyn told the story. Thomas working at the mill, discovering safety violations and embezzlement, planning to report it to OSHA, the accident that killed him, Frank Cortez's involvement. And what does this have to do with Vincent Kane? Walsh asked. Frank Cortez worked for Vincent Kane at Redwood Financial. My husband recorded a conversation in 1981 where Cortez mentioned someone named Vincent helping with the mill accounts, someone young, ambitious, with no conscience. I believe that was Vincent Kane. I believe he's been running criminal enterprises for over 40 years. The defense objected vigorously. Speculation, no foundation. The judge sustained this, time told the jury to disregard. But the seed was planted. The jury had heard it. They knew. When the defense cross-examined, they tried to make Evelyn look vengeful, emotional, unreliable. They suggested she'd fabricated evidence, coached witnesses, manipulated the investigation. Evelyn sat through it calmly. When they finished, she had one thing to say. I'm 83 years old. I've lived through a husband's death, 8 years without my son, 2 years of fear and violence from your client. I have nothing left to lose, nothing except the truth. And I'm not going to lie about that. Not for you, not for anyone. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge banged his gavel, called for order, but even he looked moved. The trial continued for 2 weeks. Witness after witness, victim after victim, each telling the same story with different details. Desperation, predatory loans, threats, violence, loss. Kane's defense was that he was just a businessman, that he offered loans to people no one else would help, that if his collection agents got overzealous, that wasn't his fault, that he had no knowledge of any violence or threats. Nobody believed him. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They came back with guilty verdicts on all counts: extortion, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, money laundering. Kane showed no emotion as the verdicts were read, but something in his eyes changed. The confidence, the arrogance, the certainty that he'd win all of it gone, replaced by the knowledge that he'd lost, that a woman he'd thought was weak and helpless had brought down his empire. Sentencing came 2 months later. Judge Brooks recused himself, too personally involved. A federal judge named Marion Stone presided instead. Before sentencing, victims were allowed to make impact statements. 23 people spoke. Linda Foster, other families of the dead, survivors who'd lost their homes, their savings, their dignity. Evelyn spoke last. Vincent Kane stole more than money from me, she said. He stole my sense of safety. He stole 2 years of my life to fear. He made me feel weak and helpless and alone. But in trying to destroy me, he did something he didn't intend. He reminded me that I'm stronger than I thought, that even at 83, even broken and afraid, I could fight back. I could win. So thank you, Mr. Kane. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to be brave. Judge Stone sentenced Kane to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. With Kane being 56 years old, it was effectively a life sentence. As marshals led him away, Kane looked at Evelyn one last time. She stared back unflinching. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Evelyn made a brief statement. Justice was served today, not just for me, but for Dorothy Foster, for Margaret Brooks, for all the victims of Redwood Financial. But this isn't over. There are more Vincent Kanes out there, more predatory lenders targeting vulnerable people. We need to stay vigilant. We need to protect each other. Someone asked if she was planning to sue for damages. Evelyn smiled. Mr. Castellano's Victims Fund has already compensated me more than adequately. I'm using that money to start a foundation, the Thomas Hartley Memorial Fund for Elder Financial Protection. We'll provide free legal help to seniors dealing with predatory lending. We'll educate people about their rights. We'll make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. More questions, but Marcus stepped in, guided his mother away. They'd rented a hotel room in Phoenix for the night. Tomorrow they'd drive back to Oak Ridge, back to normal life. Except life wasn't normal anymore. Couldn't be. In the months since Kane's arrest, Oak Ridge had changed. Sheriff Brennan's corruption had led to a complete overhaul of the department. Sarah Quinn was now the acting sheriff, pending a special election. Deputy Rita Vance had been brought in as a consultant to root out any remaining corruption. The town itself seemed lighter somehow. Secrets exposed, wounds cleaned, healing beginning. Marcus had stayed in Oak Ridge, had kept his promise to help his mother. He'd taken over the old garage his father had worked at, had started fixing cars again. The Hells Angels understood. Some bridges you had to rebuild, some debts you had to pay. Sterling visited often helped with the garage, kept Marcus connected to the life he'd left behind. But Marcus found he didn't miss it as much as he'd thought he would. The open road had its appeal, but so did being rooted. So did being home. The night after sentencing, Evelyn and Marcus sat in their Phoenix hotel room, ordering room service, watching the news coverage of the trial. "They're calling you a hero," Marcus said. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who got tired of being afraid." "That's what heroes are, Mom. Regular people who decide they've had enough." Evelyn smiled. "And maybe we're all capable of being heroes. We just need the right reason." Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, still trained by years of fearing strange calls. But those days were over. "Hello, Mrs. Hartley, this is Agent David Morrison from the FBI. I wanted to update you on the broader investigation into Vincent Kane's operations." "I'm listening." "We've identified criminal enterprises in 7 states now. Over 200 victims. Connections to organized crime, money laundering, possibly human trafficking. Kane wasn't just running Redwood. He was part of something much bigger." Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. "How much bigger?" "We're still unraveling it, but your testimony, your evidence has opened doors we didn't even know existed. We've made 12 more arrests in the past month. We expect dozens more. And the victims, are they being helped?" "Everyone we can find. We're working with state attorneys general across the country to void predatory loans, provide restitution, offer support services. It's going to take years, but we're committed to making this right." When Evelyn hung up, she felt it again. That sense of purpose. That feeling that she mattered, that what she'd done meant something beyond her own survival. "What did the FBI want?" Marcus asked. "To tell me it's bigger than we thought. That Kane was just one piece of a larger operation." "Does that scare you?" "No." Evelyn surprised herself with the truth of it. "It makes me angry. It makes me want to fight harder." "Mom, you've done enough. Let the FBI handle it now." "I will. But that doesn't mean I stop. The foundation, the education programs helping other victims, that's how I fight now. Not with wires and testimony, but with action, with making sure the system changes so this can't happen again. Marcus looked at his mother and saw someone he'd never quite seen before. Not the woman who'd raised him, not the victim who'd been beaten and threatened, but someone new. Someone forged in fire and emerging stronger. You really have changed, he said. We both have. They flew home the next day. Oak Ridge looked the same but felt different. Or maybe Evelyn felt different, and that changed how she saw everything else. Judge Brooks was waiting at her house when they arrived. Evelyn, Marcus, welcome home. Harold, what brings you by? I wanted to talk to you about the foundation. I'd like to help. I have legal expertise, connections, resources, and I have time. Too much time since Margaret died. I need something to give me purpose. I'd be honored to have your help. They spent the evening planning. The foundation would need a board staff funding beyond what Castellano had provided. It would need offices, outreach programs, partnerships with legal aid societies, and senior centers. It was overwhelming. It was perfect. Over the next 6 months, the Thomas Hartley Memorial Fund for Elder Financial Protection became real. They rented office space in downtown Oak Ridge, hired 2 attorneys and a social worker, set up a hotline for victims to call. Within a month, they had 50 cases. Within 3 months, 200. Word spread. News coverage helped. Evelyn's story resonated. Other victims found courage in her example. Sarah Quinn won the special election for sheriff by a landslide. Her first act was to create a financial crimes unit dedicated to protecting vulnerable populations. Rita Vance signed on as lead investigator. Together, they made Oak Ridge a hostile environment for predators. But success came with challenges. Evelyn was 84 now, and the work was exhausting. Long days at the office, meetings with victims, travel to other towns to speak about predatory lending. Marcus worried. Mom, you need to slow down. You're going to burn out. I'll rest when I'm dead. That's what I'm afraid of. Linda Foster joined the foundation as a volunteer, honoring her mother's memory by helping others. Judge Brooks devoted 20 hours a week to pro bono legal work. Sterling started a motorcycle charity ride to raise funds, bringing in the Hells Angels community in a way that surprised everyone. Even people who'd feared bikers saw them differently when Sterling and his brother showed up with checks and smiles, ready to help seniors fight back against financial predators. A year after Kane's conviction, Evelyn received a letter from prison, from Vincent Kane himself. She almost threw it away unread, but curiosity won. The letter was shorthand written. Mrs. Hartley, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that what you did, what you built, it matters. I destroyed lives. You're saving them. That's justice in a way the court system could never achieve. You were right. I was involved in your husband's death. Not directly. I didn't kill him, but I helped Frank Cortez cover it up. I was 24 years old and thought I was invincible. I spent the next 40 years proving myself right. Until you. One old woman with more courage than I ever had. You destroyed me. You should be proud. I hope you live long enough to see everything you've built flourish. I hope every person you save is a weight on my conscience. I hope I spend every day of the rest of my life knowing that I failed because you refused to be broken. Sincerely, Vincent Kane. Evelyn read the letter twice, then filed it away. Not forgiveness, but closure. She showed it to Marcus that night. He admitted it, Marcus said. About Dad, you could reopen that case. To what end? Cortez is dead. Kane is in prison for life. Thomas isn't coming back. Evelyn folded the letter carefully. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some ghosts need to rest. Are you at peace with it? I'm at peace with who I've become. That's enough. The foundation grew. By year 2, they'd helped over 1,000 victims, recovered millions in fraudulent debt, put 3 more predatory lenders out of business, influenced state legislation in Arizona and 2 neighboring states. Evelyn was invited to speak at conferences, to testify before legislative committees, to appear on news programs. She became a voice for the voiceless, an advocate for the forgotten. At 85, she was more vital than she'd been at 75. But age caught up eventually. A bad fall in winter left her with a broken hip. Surgery, recovery, physical therapy. Marcus took leave from the garage to care for her. During those months of recovery, they talked, really talked, about Thomas, about the wasted years, about regrets and reconciliation. I'm proud of you, Evelyn said one afternoon as Marcus helped her with exercises. Not for coming back, for staying. Where else would I be? On the road, with your brothers, living the life you chose. I chose this life too. Turns out I can choose more than once. Evelyn gripped his hand. Your father would be so proud of both of us. I think he is. By spring, Evelyn was walking again. Slowly with a cane, but walking. She returned to the foundation, part-time, training others to take over the daily operations. You're stepping back, Judge Brooks asked, concerned. I'm stepping aside. There's a difference. I'll always be involved. But the foundation needs to exist beyond me. It needs to be bigger than one woman's revenge story. It was never revenge. Wasn't it at least a little? Brooks smiled. Maybe, but it became something more. On the second anniversary of Kane's conviction, the foundation held a gala. Fundraiser and celebration combined. 200 people attended. Victims Evelyn had helped. Donors, supporters, press. Sarah Quinn gave a speech about how the foundation had changed. Oak Ridge had made it safer, had given hope to people who thought they had none. Linda Foster spoke about her mother, about how Dorothy's death had sparked a movement. Judge Brooks talked about Margaret, about turning grief into action. Then Evelyn took the stage. 86 years old, walking carefully with her cane, but standing straight and strong. 2 years ago, I was a victim, she said. I was scared, I was alone. I was convinced I had no power, no options, no future. But I was wrong. I had something more powerful than money or connections or youth. I had the truth, I had courage, and I had the stubborn refusal to go quietly into the dark. The room was silent, everyone listening. We started this foundation to help people like me, people who thought they were helpless, people who'd been told their problems didn't matter, that they were too old, too poor, too insignificant to deserve justice. But here's what we've learned: there's no such thing as insignificant. Every voice matters. Every story counts. Every person deserves dignity and respect and the chance to fight back. Applause, but Evelyn held up a hand. We've helped 1,000 people in 2 years. That's 1,000 lives changed, 1,000 families saved, 1,000 victories over predators who thought they could win because their victims were weak. But we're not weak. We're survivors. We're fighters. And we're not going anywhere. The applause was deafening. That night after the gala, Evelyn and Marcus sat on her porch watching the stars emerge over the desert. You did good, Mom. We did good. What's next, Em? Next, Evelyn laughed. Next, I'm going to sit here and enjoy my garden and not plan to change the world for at least a week. A whole week, maybe 5 days. They sat in comfortable silence, mother and son survivors and fighters, watching the night sky and thinking about everything they'd lost and found and built from the ashes. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Text message from Sarah Quinn. Another town, another predatory lender. Could use your expertise. No rush. Whenever you're ready. Evelyn showed it to Marcus. Are you, he asked, ready? She thought about Dorothy Foster, about Margaret Brooks, about all the others who hadn't survived long enough to fight back. She thought about Thomas, about 43 years of silence, about the cost of fear. Yes, she said, I'm ready. Because that's what heroes did. They got tired, they got hurt, they got scared, but they kept going. They kept fighting. They kept showing up. Evelyn Hartley was 86 years old. She'd been beaten, threatened, widowed, estranged from her son, driven to the edge of despair. But she'd survived, more than survived. She'd fought back. She'd won. And she'd built something that would outlast her, that would protect people long after she was gone. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. She texted Sarah back, count me in, tell me when and where. Then she set her phone aside and looked at her son, at her garden, at the stars. You know what the best part is, she said. What's that? I'm not afraid anymore. Not of dying, not of failing, not of anything. I spent 43 years afraid. Now I'm free. Whatever time I have left, I'm going to use it well. Marcus took her hand, I have no doubt. They sat together as the desert night deepened, as the stars multiplied, as the world turned and time passed and life continued in all its messy, beautiful, complicated glory. Evelyn Hartley had started as a victim, had become a survivor, had transformed into a fighter. And in the end, she became something more important than any of those things. She became free. And that she thought as sleep began to claim her there on the porch with her son beside her and the stars above her and the weight of fear finally gone, that was worth everything.